Why does plateau end? So if you have, let's say you have the reservoir, right? And then you have the facilities, okay, that are here. Okay, you have to overcome along the way. You have, and basically that loss in energy we can say is like you have drop in temperature also, but the main thing is the pressure. Okay, here I have some particular pressure, and here I have the separator pressure that I have to reach. Okay, here on the facilities, this pressure is usually kept fixed unless very few cases. Okay, and the way it is kept fixed is, I guess you have seen that before. You have the main separator is called the high pressure separator. Okay, it has a few control measures that are making sure that this pressure is constant. Okay, so you have, if we make it very generic, okay, we have a gas in a very simplistic way, oil. Okay, first you have a level controller. Okay, let's say in a very simplistic way it's a floater. Okay, so then you want to make sure that that level is at a particular height. If it goes too high, what might happen? You might start getting liquid into this line, which is not good. Okay, I have their compressors, I have all kind of things that depend on the phase to be primarily gas. Okay, so this guy is controlling this valve and making sure that the level is within a range. Okay, I have, how do I call these ranges in the separator? Low, high level, and low level. Okay, I think these are, so you have 3 levels in the separator, 4. So low, high level, low level, and this is high, low level, and high level, I think. Okay, so you want to be within the band. If you by any chance start to get too high, then that valve will open. Okay, another control you have, which is important for our case, is this pressure. Okay, I have a pressure gauge, and also the same thing. Okay, if the pressure starts to go up, I open the valve, let more gas go up. The pressure starts to go down, I close it, let less gas go out. Okay, and the reason for that is many of these devices that I have here, they depend on volume, the volumetric rate. Okay, for example, the separator, you need some residence time, right? So you need that the fluid will have, I'm not going a bit into this thing, but I think it's interesting. Okay, if you have the gas, you have some droplets, okay, that they are starting to fall down until they reach the interface and they are part of the oil. Okay, if you circulate them too fast, okay, that means, let's say the pressure went down, volume rate went up, and the velocity is increasing, right? If the velocity of the field, or if the velocity of this droplet of the gas, okay, is higher, then it might not have time to reach the interface, and then it will be dragged with the rest of the fluid. Okay, so in this case, the separator is dependent on, so the operation of the separator is dependent on, first on the Q local. Here we're saying local rate of gas, okay, and liquid, and then it's depending on the velocity of the gas, and then it's depending on the residence time. And that is the same for many other components we have after. We have compressors, we have pumps, we have many things. So if we start changing that pressure, we are affecting the proper operation of everything else downstream. Okay, which process engineers are terrified. Okay, if you go, as you're planning an EOR, let's say, oh, I can get a very nice rate if I lower that pressure. You're going to get screamed, okay, quite a lot. So if you see the tank, or so it will be, this will be the area of the gas. Okay, so then the velocity of the gas will be the Q of gas at that particular pressure and temperature. divided by the cross-section area, okay, which simply will be the area divided by 2. Okay. Why does plateau end? So the system energy, let's call it energy, to flow against separator pressure, okay, with the specified plateau rate. Okay, I don't have enough energy to flow against that specified rate. Okay, because we have some losses, we have to flow first from the formation. So we have the fluid goes from reservoir, okay, or it goes to the bottom hole, and then from the bottom hole it goes to the wellhead, and then from the wellhead usually goes to the separator. Okay, and in all of these things we have losses that they are defined by this one we called is a formation, right? Flow in porous media. How do we call that part of the system? That pressure drop, how do we call it? Drawdown, right? Okay. Then we have from bottom hole to wellhead. Here we have, it's a pipe, right? It's a pipe pressure loss of the mixture going, and actually I have to cover usually 3,000 meters. It's quite a big change in pressure due to the hydrostatic change. Okay, how do I call that? No, well, I have both, right? So it's simply tubing flow or tubing flow. Then I have from the wellhead to the separator. Here I have again it's same thing, pipe, but it can be a system of pipes. Okay, I have the gathering network. So here I have gathering network. Okay, and I'm losing in each one of them. I'm paying some price until I reach the separator. Okay, so here I have this Q G or QO that has to go through the whole system. But that's not the whole story. So why can plateau also end? What is another reason that plateau ends? Okay? One thing, I don't have enough energy, and then simply the rate starts to decline, and we will see we have some measures to either add energy to the system or allow it to produce a bit longer. Okay, but what is another reason I have that plateau ends? Okay, these guys that we were mentioning before, that's very correct. Okay, remember I told you forecasting, okay, production scheduling. You say, why do we want these two guys? Okay, why do we care? Maybe the gas we reinject we don't sell. Okay, we cannot use it for revenue. Gas also, the water the same. Why do we take care of the water? Okay. Okay, so let's say that I'm going to call bottlenecking. Which shouldn't happen. Is really the worst thing that can happen when you're in plateau rate. So remember, when we have the well stream, okay, we come to the first stage, we have separation, okay, and we have stabilization. Okay, and after that we get basically three main products. We get, and I'm using the wrong colors here, but red should be for gas, okay, then we get oil, and then we get water. And these guys, they go further to I have one square saying produce water treatment. I have oil, I have desalting, not done too much in the Norwegian continental shelf, stabilizing, okay. And then I have in the gas, I have typically dehydration and compression. Okay. I end up with these three products that I might sell, or I might have do for different uses. Okay, so here I have one more step, which might be for reinjection, or I also dump it to the ocean, so disposal. Okay. Oil, it goes here to the tanker or to the pipeline, and this gas goes either to the plant or goes again also for reinjection. By separation, I mean it's like a multi-stage. That's what typically you have, is like a multi-stage of separators. Okay. But after that, still the crude has also dehydration. Okay. Has significant amounts of water that you have to remove. Might have salt. You don't want to get corrosion because of water and salt. They can cause corrosion in tanker, in the refinery, many things. And also stabilization, because that oil, if you put it in a tanker, which will be at atmospheric pressure, will still be able to liberate some gas. Okay, so you want to stabilize it and such that it doesn't release that much gas. Okay. Okay. Hope they're not kicking us out, I hope. Okay. So what happens during the life, okay, of the field? So I have, let's say it's an oil field with time, and I have my oil production, gas production. How does it look like? Depending on the recovery strategy, right, that I'm applying to the reservoir. You have seen that if you have, for example, solution gas drive, the gas does, the GOR does something like that. Okay, so let's assume some mechanism, right? So the water usually increases depending on what kind of aquifer you have, how active it is, but usually you have some increase in water rate, right? Then you reach the plateau, and then it starts to have some sort of decline with the oil. Okay? Okay. The Q of the gas, it has also like a might be constant. Okay, if you are the injection, it's if the injection is keeping it undersaturated, right? If it's keeping it, for example, let's make another simple example. You have an undersaturated reservoir, no gas cap. Okay, and the injection you are having is actually maintaining that pressure. In that case, simply the gas will be constant with the oil. Okay, but you might have other cases where you have a gas cap, and you have the oil, and you have the water, and then by depletion, the oil layer is becoming thinner and thinner and thinner, right? And in that case, if it's becoming thinner, you might have starting coning, okay, more coming water into the well. So in that case, the profile actually might look quite a lot like the water, like you have some increase up to here, and then you start to decline. Okay, so it depends a bit on the, but well, my point is that it's very important to forecast these products. Okay, why? So this where your maximum, so this will be your Q water max, and this will be your Q predicted. Okay, U gas max. Okay, so let's put that comment here. Q gas max, and Q water max are used to design the facilities. Okay, so you decide, but what happens now if that's what you projected? Okay, this curve is the projection when you did the planning. Okay, but now what happens when you actually start to produce the field? That the rate, let's use another blue, okay, the rate of water actually is like that. Okay, might be because when we did our initial forecast, okay, let's say we assume that the aquifer was of one particular size, okay, or we assume one particular vertical permeability. In reality, might be that actually the permeability is much higher, and then the water can reach the well, the production well, faster, okay, or at an early stage. Okay, we have our and then it can reach. You have channeling, okay, right. Your facilities were sized for this rate. You cannot produce more. Then the only solution, this one is increasing more than anticipated. You have to reduce QO. That is something you don't want to happen in your field. Okay.
So it's like we ended the plateau early.
Then you have to start declining here. Okay. Very important. If you have a contract with gas, if this happens, you're in deep trouble. Okay. If you're in oil, you're losing all of this revenue early. Okay. You are starting the decline here. Okay. So you want that prediction to be accurate, and it's one of the biggest uncertainties in field development. Okay. How to capture that behavior in a proper way.
Is it the same for QG max or not?
The same thing. Yeah. Okay. So you can have the same thing that happens here early. If QG or Q water increase quicker than anticipated, okay, then usually the only choice is to reduce QO. Okay, that means enter in decline phase. Okay, that means if I have my Q gas is GOR times Q oil. If this guy is increasing too much, then I have to reduce oil, and Q water. Okay. Also, I have, if this guy is increasing too much, I have to reduce oil rate. Okay. So I think before we take a break, okay, sorry that it has taken some time, but I want to show you a case, okay, from Hydron, from the Norwegian continental shelf. This is a platform. Actually, it's a floating. It's called a TLP. Okay, that is a very amazing. It's a concrete structure which is floating. Okay, and is held by. It has some tethers that they lock it, so it's positively buoyant. If these tethers are not in place, it will simply go up. Okay, so they are holding it in place. So let's take these figures. Okay, I'm a bit speculating, but that's from the production profile. You can see that that's maybe what happened. So this Hydron, okay, is a platform which is floating, and it's a concrete, which is very, very, strange to have a concrete structure floating. Then you have some tethers that are holding it to ground. Okay? And the idea is that whenever you have waves or wind or something that moves it out of position, okay, then you have these tethers, if they are ever offset, okay, then you will have a force coming on the tether, okay, that will tend to move it back into place. Okay, it's called a TLP, tension leg platform. Okay, but that's not so interesting with respect to bottlenecking. So I have plotted here rates in colors. Okay, water from this from my Excel sheet, oil and gas, and these continuous lines, they are the maximum capacities reported for this field. Okay, so what can you see? What can you see there? You see that you're supposed to have here some plateau, right? If the field was operating in plateau, but then it's starting to go down. Okay, the oil. Now see the water actually is far away from its limit. Okay, but see the gas. Okay, the gas seems that it rocketed up, and then it very quickly reached values close to the capacity. Okay, so what I see this plot, and you see it's actually almost at the same time as I started the decline in the oil phase. So when I see this plot, I can arrive to the conclusion that, because I don't have any other information, I don't work in Equinor, I don't know what happened, but I might say they had a problem with early gas breakthrough. Okay, and that caused that they had to reduce the oil rate because they cannot process more gas. Okay? I just also want to point out that bottlenecking might happen if you have. So first, you could, in principle, if you have, you want to process more water, you want to process more gas, you can simply go and upgrade this package. Okay, but usually it's not that simple. There are some things that are modular that you can simply, if you have space, that's another thing. You can simply add a parallel equipment. You can try to upgrade some equipment. But usually it's very expensive to make these changes. Okay, so really you have to justify, for example, that you will get significant more years of plateau if you do this change. One other thing that might happen, not because these rates increase too much, but because of what you do with that gas. Okay, for example, if you're re-injecting water or oil or gas, there might be some problem with the injector, especially with the injectors of water. Okay, that you start to inject, they might get clogged with time due to oil particles, solid particles, due to bacteria, to all kind of things, and then you cannot dispose of that water. Okay, and then you have, because of that, you have to reduce the oil rate. Okay. Okay, so let's put that comment here. We say that bottlenecking for example, water injectors. Okay, water injector plugging. If that's the case, I can have to evaluate a method to frack. Okay, if I'm afraid of it will break, it will contaminate something, then I don't do fracking, but I probably just re-drill new injector, which is expensive. Sometimes you can have also gas injector collapse or let's say problems. Sometimes you can have bad separation times or higher than anticipated separation times. Okay, and that typically happens in for example, you have the formation of foam. Okay, which is, if you have the liquid, then the gas becomes like a very fine bubbles in a matrix of liquid. Okay, and that is very difficult to separate. And then also you have emulsion. Okay, which is if you have very fine, so this is a fine dispersion of gas in, I guess all of you are familiar with what foam looks like, of gas in liquid. Okay, and it's very difficult to separate, and more common is emulsion, that typically you have, it's a liquid water oil emulsion. Okay, if you try to water an oil, if you mix it very vigorously, for example, if they go through choke, they go through a pump, then there will be a very fine dispersion of, so I'll go with you in a minute. Okay, a very fine dispersion of, okay, water and oil, sorry, this would be dispersion. Okay, we call it fine. These are fine dispersions, that they are, the size is small. Okay, so it takes a long time to separate, and if that happens, then it can bottleneck, because instead of needing 4 minutes, maybe you need 10 minutes to separate, and then your vessel cannot take as much rate as before. Yes?
But can't you mitigate this by injecting maybe before it goes to the separator?
You can inject the emulsifier, you can add some chemicals, you can do something to improve that. Okay, but that is a reason for bottlenecks. Sometimes some oil and water, they resist to any emulsifier or anything, so it's a kind of a, still you need quite a high residence time. Okay, so let's put it here. It can sometimes be mitigated with chemicals. Okay, or with new technology. Okay, or with different technology. Yep. Okay, now I think there were some things that we had to discuss. First was the differences between onshore and offshore. That I told you to read quite a few pages. Okay, I didn't realize there were so many. Okay, so the first one was onshore versus offshore. That's from the book of Dake, which, if you don't know, is like one of the giants of reservoir engineering, and has quite a few books that are actually, a very good reference. So, what does it say here about, if you remember, what does it say here about onshore versus offshore?
In onshore, we start producing from wells as we go, but in offshore, we have to wait until we design production.
That's very true. Okay, so onshore, let's maybe make it here. We usually have, of course, some onshore fields, they behave most like offshore. They are quite remote, they are separated, so you have to build everything from scratch. But some of them, they have neighboring facilities. So you can start, if you're not sure about the size, you make a well, and then you start producing for some time, you get some data, and from there you do a better planning. Okay, so you can, it's like, so let's say here, if neighboring facilities are available, it is possible to produce from a few wells, gather more information, okay, and then plan better the field. Okay, While offshore, I usually have nothing. Okay, I have simply the whole sea. So I have to prepare. So I have to. It is necessary to design, construct, and install facilities before producing. Okay, and that's why Dake he discusses that if you compare the profile, this is usually has a very quick build-up phase. That's what we call from this period to this period is called the build-up phase. Okay, and then we enter very quickly into plateau. Okay, that's Q. While for onshore, typically we actually can take it a bit more relaxed. Okay, then we make a very smooth build up, and then we have our plateau, and then we decline. Okay, so longer build up. Okay. So there is here one of the problems I have. I can start in the onshore. I can start earning money early. I can with that finance my operations. Okay, I can have more information, less uncertainty, and I don't have to have such a big expenditure. Offshore, I have to make a lot of expenses initially. So there is a pressure to start producing as much as possible. Okay, to start making money. It's like you're spending, nothing is coming into the casa, into the cash, so you have to. So this is the intention is gain more information about the reservoir. There is also to finance development with these initial wells. Okay. While this one is to there is a push to start production as soon as possible. Okay. You also are making a lot of decisions with big uncertainty. Okay, and also so one of the things are so you want to shorten the build-up phase, and you also want to okay, we want to use here something. We use the pre-drilled wells. Okay, so that means that when we start production, we want to start with as many wells as possible. Maybe we need to tie some more wells in the later, but we want to start with a big amount of wells initially. Okay, pre-drilled wells. While the other gradually is increasing, gradually is building up. You are starting to build your facilities, and finally you can produce the maximum rate. Okay. So for example, if it's a subsea field, right? You have a lot of them, and then they go to the FPSO. Okay, very professional drawing. Okay. So in that case, if you are drilling, you go with the drilling ship and you start drilling. For example, you can start production if the FPSO is in place. You can start production from these wells already, while the others are being drilled. Okay. But for example, if you have a platform, okay, you have again another very professional drawing. and usually for this type of platforms you have the drilling tower on top. Okay, so you have to be careful if you are producing from one well and you're drilling on the well neighboring it, because remember, we have to move a lot of equipment, BOP, in and out of the well. So we usually don't like to, if one well is producing here, we don't like to avoid causing accidents. You don't want to be drilling on a neighboring well. Okay, so if my development has something like that, like all wells concentrated in one place, that can also happen if I have on a template, we're going to see later. But if I in a template I'm drilling several wells at the same time, I don't want to produce from them because there is a risk for accident. Okay, but if I have this case that they are quite separate, the vessel has to move significantly from one place to another, I can simply very safely produce from some, and then this one will be like stepwise, while for this case it will be more like a big jump and starting production. Okay. Okay, this will be more like a very steep jump, and this one will be more like a stepwise. Okay. Okay, so see here that also the scheduling is important. When are we drilling wells? If there is any delay, that's going to affect my and also the facility has to be in place. If there is a delay, that's why so many, forgot the name in overskridelse. It's overrun, cost overrun. Okay, when you go above the budget, they happen because the offshore processing is not in place yet. Okay. Yes. What else did we have there? That article. Okay. Here is, I think, where they said. Okay, I think it's interesting you read, but I think that's basically the main idea. Okay, they are more costly. You want, sometimes if you have big uncertainty, they say you can bring a lightweight platform, small platform. That's actually one idea now is getting a bit popular, that you have a small platform, you actually test how much you have, and then you decide if to have another platform. So make like a stage-wise development. Okay. Okay, so here Dake says that there can be offshore fields that development is resembling those in the offshore environment. Okay, because simply they are remote, they have no infrastructure, so you have to build everything from scratch. Like they call the field in Yemen, there is a field, Urucu in Brazil is actually in the middle of the forest, so you have to have, you know, the plan, the infrastructure, everything. I think that's okay. Let's take that part. Okay, so here you have this onshore and offshore. Okay, it tells a bit about what kind of data you have to collect and what kind of things you have to take into account. Okay, that's something interesting he mentions here, that so just to check who read this document. Don't be embarrassed. No, okay, not many. So please read for next week, okay? I know probably was not a bit short notice, okay? But just read. But he's saying here that, you know, the volumes that you can produce if you do an exploration and appraisal well, actually the drilling ship has very low capacity, okay, of like separator to process those rates. So usually these rates are not that high. Okay? If you are in an onshore field and you do an exploration appraisal well, You can change that well later to production, okay, which is a big advantage, and you can produce much higher rates, okay, which gives you a lot more information. Okay? So that's the discussion he has here, that offshore, actually, these appraisal wells, you get a little bit not too good information because of the capacity of the drilling ship. Remember, if we produce these rates, the drilling ship has to do something with this gas and oil. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so he says very honestly, to be candid, however, at the end of the appraisal phase, irrespective of the technique employed, the quantification of predictions of field performance is anybody's guess, and therefore highly subjective activity. Okay? That's why we have to be able, in all of our workflow, to quantify uncertainty. Okay? So we just don't give a number, but we have to be able to quantify. So for example, if we gave this profile, okay, here, we don't have to be able to provide simply just a number, okay, but we want to make a range of variation. We think it might be between this maximum and this minimum, and this has the following probability of occurrence. Okay, we think this one will be the most likely.